I'm Erica Hollingsworth, and you're listening to the F1 podcast.
What's up, everyone? It is Richie here from the F1 podcast. Today is February 17th, 2024, season 4, episode 2, and I'm here with Andrew Cleary. Andrew, how are you doing, my man?
Doing fantastic. The season is right around the corner. We got testing next week. I am excited to get the 2024 season underway.
We're going to be at Trinity Common in 2 weeks for the first race, and it's going to be on a Saturday at 10 a.m. So we do have seats available at our section, but also you can call in and make a reservation. Also, this is episode 2 of season 4, so make sure you listen to episode 1 where we interviewed Nicole Haverda and talk about her racing experience as a Canadian female motorsport driver. Also, we've hit 800 followers on Instagram, so thank you for all the love and support. Also, it'll be myself and Andrew for most of this month for this week's episode. Erica's on a nice long vacation down to New Zealand, so hopefully she can go to the Australian Grand Prix for us.
We do need a correspondent on the grounds in Australia. So if she's there, might as well kill two birds with one stone, effectively.
I think it would make sense. So if anyone in Australia, hit up the F1 podcast and see if we can extend our trip to the Australian Grand Prix. Okay, so I think what we had planned for this week's episode, similar to last season, where we reviewed each of the liveries. Since we've recorded our last episode, there's been a lot of news surrounding all the teams. So I think what we were thinking for this episode, talk about the liveries, and we'll talk about whatever drama or any information that's come from that team. So we have our list, we have our thoughts, we have our pictures of nice cars, ugly cars. We'll dive in and get to it. So we're going to go off the standings from last year, last season's constructors. So we're going to start with number 10, Haas. It's mostly an all black car this year. I think it's a little bit sleek. It is nicer. It is, predominantly black compared to last year's car. I mean, it is nicer. I think I like the all black about it, but what do you think? And I don't know if you noticed, they have the little bit of American flag on the nose of the car.
It's pretty much a carbon copy of last year's livery. And ironically, majority of this livery is made out of carbon to help for weight reduction purposes. And knowing Haas, they're going to need all the reduction purposes they can get in order to become a competitive car in this season. I'm going to give it like a 3 out of 10 in terms of livery because we've already seen it. There's a common element, a common theme that we're going to see a lot this year in terms of the carbon fiber look. When it first kind of came out, I was like, oh, that's it. But maybe that's all that they can afford, knowing Gene.
You lose.
Okay, well, I was going to go with like a 6.5. I mean, we've kind of already seen it, but I don't think I'm giving out any full 10s here. So I was trying to be reasonable, but, curious to see. Actually, you know what? It's going to go down to a 6 because I think some of the news coming out of Haas is Gunther Steiner is no longer with Haas F1. Everyone knows him from that lovable commentator for Drive to Survive, provided a lot of great sound bites for the team. And I think there's just clearly a discontent or a disagreement in Gene Haas and Gunther Steiner in terms of finances. I think we're going to miss him on the grid. I hope he can land somewhere that the team has been struggling, but you also need to invest in your team. And I don't think that investment was there for Gunther Steiner to succeed.
No, and he even pushed, the big reason why, as you mentioned, the disagreement came into fact was because Gunther wanted Haas, Gene to invest in the team. And I don't know, every move that Gene has made since, for a couple seasons now is that he's been finding ways to cut back costs. You can't do that in this sport in order to succeed. It's a very North American viewpoint of how to try to perform, right? Just trying to enhance your profits as an owner. But the issue with that is that you're not going to have a competitive car. And, Haas's new team principal, Io Komatsu, he was kind of Gunther's right-hand man during, if you look for the DTS, he's always there with Gunther, kind of providing his head of performance. But now that he is the team principal, I'm concerned that he just I don't want him to become a yes man for Gene, but I feel that Gene kind of made that move so that he can then still have his way as owner in that case. And when Io made a comment this year already that they're going to be the slowest car in Bahrain, I have no faith in this team to remotely come anywhere close to a points finish this season.
And not only that, I think he's also was pretty clear that he's like, I'm not going to try to be a Gunther Steiner. Like, that's not who I am. And I don't know, if I was a Haas fan, I don't know what I'd be looking forward to in the start of the season. You lose your most charismatic. I mean, the only thing is you have your two drivers returning again this year. And I think we'll talk about this in probably our next episode about our season predictions, but it'd be tough to see why a 10th place team will be anything higher than that, given what has happened over this break.
And what really annoys me too is the fact that with regards to Gene and not wanting to put any money involved within the team whatsoever, we had a bid rejected by F1 for the Andretti team to come into Formula One, citing that Andretti doesn't bring any value to F1. F1's bringing the value to the Andretti brand. And I'm just thinking here, seeing, okay, what value does a Haas brand bring to Formula One? These guys are just garbage when it comes to performance on track. And when you hear K-Mag here that they haven't invested in, say, like a wheel gun or any wheel gun update since like 2016, I'm like, this is insane. We've had a new tire specs for how many seasons now? They don't even have a sim. What kind of value does they bring to F1 whatsoever?
Andretti too, he is a former Formula One champion. He won in 1978. He won 12 races. He got 19 podiums. You have somebody who's wanting to come in, and he's showing more fire than what one team on the grid is currently looking for. It's kind of like a slap in the face that F1, like, I don't really buy the agreement or the conclusion why they don't think that he should be in it. But hey, never say less, whatever. We're just gonna have to move on.
Yeah, no, I'm big Gene Haas out proponent right now. I never understood why he doesn't want to invest in the team, and if he doesn't want to continue to invest at all, then there's no point for him to be on the grid.
The talk about investments is we all care about cash money.
Mm-hmm.
So why not put it in an app and call it Visa Cash App Racing Bulls?
Visa Cashback app crap Racing Bulls?
So yeah, this was, for a lot of people that don't know, AlphaTauri basically have changed names. This now Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. And honestly, I look at the car, I think it is a little bit more cleaner, but it's going back to your old Toro Rosso color schemes. It is the Red Bull Sisters team, which has like a striking blue and white design. They're moving away from that navy dominated. I don't know if you watched the actual reveal, but they had, Daniel Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda, and then they had
Kendrick was in that as well, which was pretty neat.
Then you had Kendrick Lamar performing at the ceremony, and then he didn't really look too impressed when they did that photo afterwards. So yeah, it was really interesting. Some bold comments by Ricciardo. He said that, I feel like this is another step up now. We are no longer just a platform for Red Bull Racing. It's time for us to fight at the front of the midfield. Mind you, we'll see if that backs up the statement. I think it is a much cleaner car, and I like it much better than last year's car. So I'll give this one a 7.
This was such a refreshing livery to be unveiled, considering that we, up until that point, there was just carbon fiber after carbon fiber after carbon fiber just being thrown on. It's beautiful. It resembles the Toro Rosso look with the blue. I love the Visa silver that they've included into like the body where the side pods are. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 because I just think it was such refreshing. And it's funny for a team that I think it's just a terrible name, like Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, V-Card for short. Richie, I don't know if you noticed this, but the look of the design of the car looks very much similar to the RB19 that won 22 of 23 races last season, or 21, sorry. A ton of races last season. So I can see why Daniel made these comments about how it's time for them to start fighting at the front of the midfield, because if they have kind of the similar specs and design as the RB19, they may be one of the shocks of the season, I would say, in terms of growth and positioning. AlphaTauri at one point was fighting the midfield. Remember a couple of years ago, we were like, AlphaTauri could be in that P5, P6 role. And they lost investment going down. Now that they're more connected with the team, I think that they're going to maybe go back to that prominent role. And let's see how Yuki grows in that team this year, then, if they have a pretty challenging car. But I thought it was funny when Daniel Ricciardo got asked about the team's acronyms called V-Carb, and he goes like, well, you always need your vitamins and your carbohydrates every day, right? So we're going to call it the V-Carb from now on.
Yeah, you got to get your vitamins A, B, C's, and D's, kids. You gotta listen to your doctors. That's our health take.
So important.
Alfa Romeo is no longer. And for 1 year, it's the Sauber F1 steak?
It's the medium rare steak, Sauber, kick you in the ass team. I don't know. Something like this ridiculous name. Because there's steak as their main sponsors.
Kick Sauber Ferrari. Or Stake F1 team kicks Sauber. So I literally had to just confirm. So
But
anyways,
Richie, why did they have to change names?
well, wasn't there some legal thing that happened?
Yeah. I mean, this is hilarious. So Stake F1 team is facing potential legal challenges in Switzerland, where I believe that's where the manufacturer resides, or the constructor resides, over advertising regulations, because under Stake is an F1 betting platform that has, I think, a holding company in Curacao, where it's an Aussie-based kind of betting platform, but it's online betting is not always legal in every country that they go to. So the fact of the matter is that it's and they can't advertise gambling straight up when they go to said country. So and even in Switzerland, where the team resides, is you can't even call it Stake F1 team when you go to a country that doesn't allow for online gambling or any gambling rights whatsoever. So how do they not think of this when they're looking for their title sponsor at the end of the day?
And I think you would try to understand this, because even like some countries that F1 races in, alcohol is not like permitted or forbidden. And so some of the teams have to hide their alcohol sponsors when they race in said country for that weekend. So I think just like overall, that's like a big if or oof moment. And to top it off, like also there is a Canadian connection. You had Drake doing some sponsor stuff for the team as well, leading up to the livery. I think this team got not only that they had that screw up with all this legal issues now, they did a total 180 of the car color. And then before it was like a black, kind of darker reddish, which I thought looked really like sexy, to like a black and I don't know what you call this, lime green. I'm not a fan of it. I'm gonna be very honest. It's kind of ugly.
I kind of understand what they're going for, and in the sense that the fluorescent green is a pretty neat touch. But again, it's a very black color, right? So it kind of blends in with the rest of the crew, or some of the cars that are going to be out there this year. But I think that green adds a nice pop to it in terms of the overall design. But I maybe give it like a 5 out of 10 tops.
I'm gonna go 4 Alpine, and
I think you
Alpine.
mean Williams. Williams next.
They stuck to their largely same color scheme for 2024 from last year's FW45 with various shades of dark and navy blue. I also still liked how they kept the Duracell
Yeah.
on the top of the car, and I think that is a very good.
I think that's probably like one of the neatest in features with regards to a livery that they had, where the top head exhaust, that's the end of the Duracell battery, and then that whole side, that whole kind of top part has that Duracell logo integrated within it. It's yeah, you know what, I always love Williams's liveries, because like going back to that old blue style, especially with the partnership with Golf, it's like one of those liveries that you just don't change. You know what I mean? It's a classic, and they've kind of did a little refinement to it this year. And in my opinion, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, because it is just really nice how because it has that classic look to it. It's still modern in its approach.
Also, I don't know if you noticed this, but they added a red and white pinstripe around the nose and the side pod, which was a nod to its British identity. Their race winners like Nigel Mansell and Canadian Jacques Villeneuve. So they gave like a nod to them kind of in this car. So that was kind of really nice to see. I think we have high hopes for Williams this year. I don't know if maybe a podium could be in the bag. I think that will be a team that will surprise a lot of people next year.
James Vowles is really confident in how with the trajectory of the team. I think hiring James Vowles as the team principal for Williams was probably one of the best decisions that Doralton Capital Ventures made with regards to their tenureship in Williams. And overall, I think if Logan can have a great bounce back season after his rookie year, and if Albon can grow, because Albon's been pipped to sign with a few different teams in 2025, but I think they should try and keep him at Williams based on the overall growth that team's had. I think that they could be challenging in the midfield in a couple seasons coming up.
Yeah, I think time will tell, and I think with just confident drivers like Alex Albon, like I can see him like being able to bag some big points for the team. So moving on to number 6, and sorry to our Williams fans for skipping you. My apologies there. We got Alpine. Not a lot of pink than I anticipated.
They lied to us on the livery launch. Like
They did?
Before the launch of the livery in the cars, Alpine had this picture that they posted of the nose, and it was like this pink kind of camouflage fluorescent or floral looking design on the nose for the car. And then they unveiled this just hunk of junk. So they unveiled this kind of, what Alpine was like, especially these past couple seasons, is that they've had that really nice pink livery for the first couple of years. BWT is a prominent sponsor of, like a really kind of unique color design and overall logo design that we incorporate within the Alpine. And then as well, they had like that nice blue Alpine look to it with regards to, they had some green and some red outer tones with the Castrol sponsorship. But this year it is just blah. I bet you the delivery design team had a couple ideas. For weight reduction purposes, it's majority carbon fiber again.
Yeah, and I think like not only that, and I think there were some comments made that even Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon didn't even look really impressed during the whole presentation. I don't know if that was like purpose, or I don't know if it's about memes, but yeah, like, I don't know. Like if you kind of lie off the bat there in a social media, like you kind of really just like shoot yourself in the foot. So I'm hesitant to really give this car a high rating, because I don't think there's really any change. So I'm like, I'll just stick to a 5 with it.
A 3, just because of the expectation that I had from Alpine and traditionally what they've been able to do with their liveries, just to kind of go to this look. It's interesting this case because, as you mentioned, Esteban and Gasly did not look happy. This is a real big season for Alpine in terms of a turnaround because of all the torment and just the kind of, the ton of DNFs last season we talked about in our year-end review, as well as just the overall. There was in-team fighting right at the beginning of the season, right, with Gasly crashing into Ocon or vice versa in Australia. Yeah. This is a really big team for this team to kind of cement themselves back into the top 5. And compete. So I don't know what that's going to entail for Alpine, but especially since Ocon is still under Mercedes management, and we'll talk about this later, he might be picked to replace a certain seat on that team.
Yeah, like honestly, time will tell. There is going to be, I think that's another team that like, what is going to be the future for Alpine in Formula One, or just in general, just with their 2 drivers, and if they're going to stay with the team. I guess now we're getting to, I think, the top 5. And who obviously had a really good season last year, Aston Martin. I'll be neutral here. Like it's a classic Tiffany green look. This was built at your first campus in Silverstone, hybrid focused journey campaign, and it's pretty neat. I mean, the only thing I've noticed is no more Peroni sponsorship, because I think a certain team took that.
You stole it from us.
So immediately marks off there. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. It looks nice. I don't think there's anything real change, but I'm curious what your thoughts on the Aston Martin's car this year.
I really like the yellow highlighter stripe that goes through kind of like a flow on the side pods of the car and kind of the side body of the overall car itself. Yeah, it's a classic Tiffany green look, and that's again what the Aston Martin brand is. So I'm really happy that Lawrence stayed on brand with regards to the team colors and whatnot. Yeah, as you mentioned, Lawrence has put a ton of investment into these new AMR technology campus at Silverstone, and this is the AMR 24 is the first Aston Martin to be built there. So as a result, the car's been refined in a lot of areas, notable differences in the nose and the front wing, but as well as aero changes have been made in the push rod near suspension, just because I think Mercedes' equipment or parts that they're providing. So Alonso, though, has been quite vocal with how he wants the car, especially with how poorly it performed in a straight line towards the end of last season. Yeah. In that case. So he's been quite vocal in terms of the development of the car this year. And I think they've taken, and the team at Silverstone have really taken that into account with regards to the development of the AMR 24. And Lawrence Stroll is also expecting quite a better performance out of the car. But I really hope he directed that comment towards his son, because his son needs to be a lot better in Formula One in order to have this team good to a top 4 finish.
Well, it's really interesting that you make those comments, because even when I've just seen some of the highlights of their launch, they kept always talking about, oh, Fernando Alonso, and it's just like the other, I'm like, oh, you guys have another driver, by the way.
Yeah, but that other driver did not help whatsoever in last year's Constructors' Championship. towards the end. But you know what? I love it. I'm going to be semi-biased here, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, just because I love the Aston Martin. That Tiffany green look is just so classic.
Yeah, looking at it again, I was gonna go a 7, but I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I think I do like when you talk about that yellow line. I think that does a really nice take. I don't know. I find it just cleaner. Let's go with
Yeah,
that.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll go 7.5 for Aston Martin. Okay, now we're getting to the top four. McLaren. Okay, so be careful. The photo that we have here, is this the car? Because they do like an early release too. Like what was
I
did we
think
spread
someone
fake news?
leaked the photo by accident. Somebody, like,
Okay.
again, I don't know how that's, because it was supposed to be released on Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
and delivery just kind of got put on their social media page a couple weeks before that, and it was like, is this it?
Well, immediately I posted a photo thinking that I was like, oh, did they just release it? But yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the car. What's your overall thoughts on it? I think it's a little too much black.
Yeah, again, it's going to that carbon fiber look, and that was kind of the trend start with regards to, weight. Again, it's a lot of it's for weight reduction purposes. You're going to see that, especially with the weight regulations are now more strict this coming season. But at least they threw in that classic papaya,
Yeah,
thankfully. Around I still love how they have the
the
Google
wheels.
branded wheel, was it like the tires in terms of the
Yep.
wheel drum. I would
They also,
love a
I'm,
little more chrome in the car, if you know what I mean.
yeah. Well, it depends what update you're dealing with for Google Chrome, Andrew. I would have wanted more orange, but I think a 7 is fair.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6.5 because it still has that classic papaya look in within the car itself, and that's kind of what McLaren fans have now come to know and love. And I wish they had a little bit more chrome added to it to pay an homage back to his Vodafone McLaren Mercedes days, because I think that was one of the best liveries ever made. Going forward.
So I think let's just also kind of talk a little bit about McLaren. I think big news coming out this season is now that we've kind of noticed, I think it was 9 drivers that need to resign next year. And one of those, I think, was Lando Norris. So Lando Norris has signed a multi-year extension beyond 2025, clearly showing that they see so much potential in him and for the future of his career at McLaren. So I think the one thing that he'll just need to do is win a race to really prove his worth. But like he's starting to get podiums for the team. He's starting to show that and he's also aged too. I don't know if you've seen photos of him when he first started with McLaren to now. Now it's really interesting to kind of see the growth that he's had since he started racing.
Yeah, I think he's become more mature too as a race driver. But yeah, I think the first win is kind of looming over his head right now. But I feel once he gets that first win, it's going to be a snowball effect, and he's going to win more and more and more races, especially if McLaren give them a really competitive car this year to fight Red Bull. Based on last season's projections, I feel like that McLaren will be the team to really showcase a challenge for Red Bull this season. But it's clear that Lando Norris is the guy. He is McLaren's number one. Oscar Piastri might have something to say that, but again, he's still coming off a rookie campaign, which he was very successful. So I really do think that they do have a really great 1-2 tandem at McLaren for the next few years.
Yeah, and then I think there's also still some news. It sounds like Zach Brown isn't giving up his efforts to convince the FIA to take action against Red Bull's partnership with their sister outfit, Visa Cash App. Curious to kind of see if the FIA will play anything there. I don't know. Yeah, it will be interesting to kind of just see how McLaren starts the season, because we've seen the last couple of seasons where they've started the season not on a very high note.
I think they're going to continue on with the momentum from the end of last season going into this year. I think they have the right personnel now that Andrea Stella is the team principal to really make a push to become that main challenger for Red Bull this season. But yeah, going back to what you're saying about Zach Brown, I completely understand why he's doing it from an FIA perspective, because the Racing Bulls have kind of the same voting power as Red Bull, and you're able to combine that voting power, create influences on decisions within FIA. And even Zach was saying that some of these decisions that they vote for don't necessarily favor their overall outfit, but that's politics in a way, right? And Red Bull took an opportunity to back 15 years ago when they, or not even 15, like probably like is like 20 years ago maybe, when they put in the second team to help with regards to the junior program. No one said anything then really, or made any efforts to stop it. Otherwise, they wouldn't been able to have a team like that coming forward. So I can see where he's coming from, but I'm not too sure how or if that partnership will ever fade.
Yeah, time will tell. So we'll definitely have to see how that plays out. So now we're getting to the top three. Next one we have is Ferrari. I think honestly, some big changes to the car. I've already noticed. Peroni is one of their major sponsors, Italian beer company. So now you've seen that on the car. Also, they have this really nice white and yellow stripe kind of going through the car and even on the nose too. I think also I've just even noticed some of their clothing is even much cleaner and less black on it. I don't know, for me, I found like last year there's just too much black on the car, and it like kind of really not try to hide the red, but try to be like that color. So it looks like a much cleaner car too. I think the clothing, I think definitely this will probably be the year people will buy a lot of stuff. Really wish they moved that shell on the shirts up, because I think it should match the Ferrari from like if it's on this side of the shirt or that side. I don't like how it's still lowered, because I think the UPS symbol used to be there, or vice versa. But yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8.5. There's a lot of talk about Ferrari, but I wanted to wait to hear what your thoughts to the car.
I honestly love this livery. It's so cool. Again, I love this. Yeah, you mentioned the white and yellow stripe that goes through the side pod. I love the new redesign of the side pod too, because they have the air vents more on the shoulders of the car than in the pod itself. It looks slick in that case. I love the numbering too, and how it's like that bright white in your face portion. The Peroni logo looks nice on the car. I think it suits the car well. But then also they kept that classic Ferrari logo on the rear wing itself. I'm gonna give this a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh wow.
Honestly, Ferrari has always got just like that classic red, right? And when you think of a sports car or you think of an F1 car, what's the first car you really think of?
Ferrari.
Ferrari, right? So they stuck to their roots on this livery. It looks incredible. No, I think it's going to be a fantastic car to see out on the grid this year.
It wasn't really quiet in Maranello this year, was it?
I was actually surprised how there was only like a minute long release of it. There was no like campaign. There was no Ferrari fans sitting in the crowd for like the reveal of the livery. It was just a 1 minute video, and that was kind of it.
They probably just said like, let's not do that again. And I also want to know that, well, let's talk about the promotion material. The screw up with the pit stop and the top left front wheel on the left side
Oh,
took a little slower, and everyone just roasted them. And then their admins like posted the wrong video. Whoops.
like their poetry in motion campaign. It's just so ironic, right? Poetry in motion that the front left got stuck on the pit stop, and so everyone was like, we're not even starting the season in Bahrain yet, and yet we had issues with the pit stops." And it was funny when Ferrari posted, admin got a little too excited with the scenery in the moment that they posted the wrong video. And then this shows like the poetry in motion with a perfect pit stop. So it was just hilarious that we're not even at preseason testing yet, John. And Ferrari seemed to screw up strategy within the team. I mean, better
Yeah.
to screw up now than in the season itself, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Any other major news that came out of Ferrari this summer?
I don't know. I think like a certain Lewis Hamilton decided to join the team.
Sorry, I meant to say winter break. I think this is my first time to publicly talk about it, because I didn't get any media requests on Twitter.
Go off, King. I want to hear it. Let's go.
You lose.
For me, it has been like one of those moments where you have someone like his caliber coming over to a team like Ferrari. He's accomplished so much at Mercedes and at McLaren. I think what better way to win is a title with the team that like Michael Schumacher raced on. There are, I guess, some understandings, and like let's be real. I think Carlos Sainz, when a major driver comes over, who's gonna go? Like Maranello has put all their eggs in one basket with Leclerc. And that's like, I get it, but Carlos Sainz has proven himself in a Ferrari car, and he's actually won 2 races. He's bagged a lot of podiums. So like you kind of feel bad for Carlos Sainz. And I think what happens is he's going to probably go to Audi. I think that's what everyone is kind of like, that's the rumors going around. But yeah, no, I'm excited. It's fun. It's that weird feeling though. It's like, let's say if you play for the Toronto Maple Leafs for all your careers, then you go over to the Montreal Canadiens, or like it's going to be weird to see him in a Ferrari. But like, I can only imagine like when they announced this, the support of him went up, or I mean, the stock went up, clothing design, the clothing brand. Like I can only imagine what's going to happen with him. And I think it's going to take first couple of races for me, but like I'll get it. Like I'm excited to see him drive a
I
Ferrari
think
car.
stocks total went up like a valuation. I think it was like $6 billion
Oh my goodness.
as a result of like this decision. And you see it in North American sports with a team like first it's like Peyton Manning going from the Indianapolis Colts to the Denver Broncos, right? Tom Brady, lifelong New England Patriot. I know that Lewis had he won a championship with McLaren. We can't forget those McLaren days in terms of story. Everyone, when they think of Lewis Hamilton, right, it's his dominance with Mercedes. And that's the team that a lot of people would be synonymous with Lewis Hamilton, right? So it's kind of like when Tom Brady, lifelong Patriot, goes from New England to Tampa Bay, right? It's going to be a whole different look, but honestly, it was a seismic shock in terms of that announcement, right? I woke up and saw the news come across my Twitter feed, and my eyes were just like, wow, right? It just jumped out of my socket because I just couldn't believe the decision. And with Charles being kind of a front runner to be like their number one driver before that. It was an extension towards like the end of the 29, I think it's the 2029 season, right? The fact that you have Lewis and Charles as your two drivers for the next couple seasons after this year, which again, I find the timing very odd, right? Because this announcement was made literally a full year plus before the start of the 2025 season. And I didn't realize you could really do that. And this is what kind of started the silly season out of the gate for this year.
Well, and not only that, and I think that can like throw a lot of people off because if you think about it, feeling of Lewis in Mercedes in his last year, and what is the feeling of Carlos Sainz in his last year? Like, because you want to keep them to stay motivated because, and again, like you want to get a better constructor's position for your team. Yeah, I can understand both sides of the argument, and like, yeah, you might have two very dominant drivers on your team, but like, begs the question, who's going to be quote unquote number one? Because we always talk about it. It is a team sport, but they always look at Red Bull. Max Verstappen over Sergio Perez. So it's like, I'm curious to kind of see how that goes. But yeah, like, I don't think it's going to be real until I see him actually put on the Ferrari jacket for the first time.
Yeah. And,
or the suit.
I don't like this is going to be an integral part year for Carlos because I know that he's been situated to go to Audi in 2026, or that's what the rumor is. But he needs somewhere to drive for 2025, right? And there are so many openings, right? It's still like there's a lot of drivers that need to be signed for the next season coming up that this could be an opportunity to really showcase why he's a threat in F1 because he is a fantastic driver.
Yeah, there's no question about that. He's proven himself with McLaren, and he's proven himself. Yeah, I think he's had his best years at Ferrari, and I think we've kind of seen that. I think he's at his peak as a career. Or getting to it. So I guess let's move up to. There's a lot of talk about Lewis. So let's talk about Lewis's current team right now, Mercedes. They brought back the Silver Arrows because Mercedes is known for being the Silver Arrow. So their whole nose has the silver. It is a predominantly black car, but it's nice to kind of see that silver into it. So I like it because like that's the one thing I didn't like about the all black car. And I can only imagine if you're driving a car that's all black, it's probably really hot too. And I don't know. I like it. I think I'm going to give it probably like a 7.5.
Yeah, I love it in the sense that it's a branding of the current direction of with Formula One or what Mercedes has been right since since 2020 in terms of the transitioning of the car, but then also a paid an homage to the Silver Arrow, right? I think it's a really sleek design in terms of that nose is more of the silver component right in the top, and then the side pod is more of that carbon fiber look. They do have the INEOS red logo at the top as well to kind of bring it all together. And I think it's going to be a really clean car to see on the grid this year. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Mercedes black livery as well, just based on the slick design. I think it's a cool marriage between the two of them.
Toto found out the news during a lunch planned with Lewis. I think he said he was not surprised about it. And then, like, who will be replacing him at Mercedes? Could it be a Fernando Alonso? Could it be Esteban Ocon? Do you move Mick Schumacher up? So there's a lot of going through George's head. He's like, okay, well, if you're out, like, you should prioritize me for this season.
In his time with Mercedes, Lewis has won 82 Grand Prix. He's won 6 World Constructors Championships, a number of World Drivers, tied the record with Mercedes in terms of World Drivers Championships with Schumacher. It's a weird scenario because the rumors going around in terms of why Mercedes didn't want to resign him was quite shocking, actually, in the sense that Lewis wanted an extended deal, but he also wanted a ambassador role associated with the team, which rumor has it was going to be around $250 million over a 10-year span. That was going to see him be an ambassador to Mercedes for until 2035. And Mercedes board of directors effectively said no to that request. And I was shocked because look at what Lewis has done for that team, right? Without Lewis, I don't know if you win 6 World Constructors Championships. I don't know you become such a prominent force in F1 without him being with him in your outfit, right? It's just I was shocked to hear that they didn't want to demand his man, and that's when John Elkann, like the president of Ferrari, stepped right in and said, "Hell yeah, we'll give you the money. We'll give you." It's going to be like I think it's going to be 400 million euros over the next 10 seasons to help him drive for racing, as well as being an ambassador role, supporting projects like the what is it called, like the Mission 44. Right, and transforming to ambassador for Ferrari, and it was a perfect timing for Ferrari to get that decision. But I was overall shocked that Mercedes said no to that idea. Again, with the timing, right? Having a breakfast before, it's like we're like 3 weeks before testing, and this kind of a couple months before testing, and a guy gets announced, right? That in 2025, it kind of feels like Toto and Lewis were together going on like a week-long vacation to an all-inclusive resort. And before the flight even happened, they broke up, and now they have to spend a whole year together with kind of like that, maybe not a little animosity, but obviously there's going to be a little bit of resentment, I think, for both sides. Just it's kind of natural how people are, right, in terms of how that decision's made. But it's going to be a weird season in the Mercedes camp. I think they're going to do everything in their power to have Lewis win his 8th World Driver Championship, but George Russell's going to be starting to think, okay, this is definitely now my team. Why don't I now start moving into that number 1 driver's role as well? And in terms of a replacement, there are a multitude, and even they've talked about Formula 3 wonder kid Kimi Antonelli as one who could replace Lewis at Mercedes in 2025. So really interesting to see what comes from that.
It'll be nice if we could see someone like new in the sport, just because we've kind of had the same rinse and repeat of drivers. So I'm wondering how that's all going to play out.
The number 1 team based on their car launch.
So sorry to interrupt, Andrew, but just also like Max Verstappen has been doing all these other races or I don't know what you call them, go-karting, online racing,
Sim racing.
He's still kicking butt. I don't know if you've been seeing this on Reddit all day.
Oh yeah, he's just him and his esports team. He loves it. He just loves racing. And honestly, like if you ever watch his sim racing videos, he's just a different person around his friends in the sense that he's more laid back, more relaxed, more fun. I think it's a good side that we can see of him, considering how cutthroat and ruthless he is in Formula One.
So I don't know. What did you think of the Red Bull's new car this year?
I think the livery has not changed whatsoever because it's now become kind of like that classic Red Bull design for the livery. I do say so. The car has significantly changed. There's no side pods, John. They are going to take, this would be hilarious. They're going to take Mercedes, no side pod, like Newey's going to take that no side pod content design, incorporate that into Red Bull. And if Red Bull win all 24 races this season, it's going to make Mercedes look like the biggest fools in the world.
I mean, the thing is, because it's the same car, like nothing, like in terms of like the color and scheme, like nothing really, I don't think really changed. Do you really give it a high rating? Or are you just do we just stick to status quo, or?
I'm gonna stick to status quo on the livery update. I'm gonna give it like a 6.5 because I think the Red Bull branding is really neat in that sense. But Again, it's the same livery as, last year. You kind of want to see some form of variation. But I really think though that this is one of the most technologically advanced cars, like even so much innovative in that, guys like us who do this for, who have followed the sport more of on a for fun basis and, don't really know all the technical aspects ins and out. We can see that this is a revolutionary car. And I don't know if you saw them do they're doing some testing out at Silverstone the other day, and the way that car sounded, it
Especially,
sounded like
wasn't
a
it the rain?
yeah, ooh, it sounded like a rocket ship.
I mean, I can't wait for the season to start.
I mean, as a Ferrari fan, right? You had all these high hopes that I think you start challenging at the beginning of the season. And as any team in the top that could be contending Red Bull, but from the looks of it, it must be so demoralizing because that car could win 24 races this season. I'm not lying, in by like a margin of 30 plus seconds.
Let's hope not. But probably. So I guess that ends our review of all the car liveries. I think we gave some pretty fair scores, and I think some surprises. So you're gonna wrap up season 4, episode 2 of the F1 podcast. I'm here with Andrew. Andrew, thank you so much. Why don't you do the honors? Actually, before we get there, make sure we see you guys at Trinity Common on March 2nd. Please send us a note on Instagram if you have any questions, because I know we've gotten a couple about reservations and seats. For our section, it is the first come, first serve. So we do encourage, I think we'll be on site probably 9:30 as usual, or 9:45, but recommend coming anytime 9:45 if the race is at 10. So yeah, I guess we'll send it off, Andrew, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for listening to season 4. Wow, season 4 already. Episode 2 of the F1 podcast. Yes, my name is Andrew Clary, along with Jonathan Ricci. We thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We can follow us on Instagram at F1.podcast. Follow us on TikTok at F1.podcast. Also follow us at Apple, YouTube, and Spotify, to where you can listen to our podcast episodes. Season 4, episode 3 will be coming up. We'll be doing a full review or preview of the F1 season, sharing our thoughts and predictions of what might transpire in the next upcoming 24 races, as well as we want you to send us your predictions so that we could share on the podcast and see how those come in fruition. We're also going to be creating our F1 podcast fantasy league within the next week or so. So stay tuned to that. We'll have more information on season 4, episode 3 regarding to that. But lo and behold, this is the season 4, episode 2 podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We shall see what these look like on track with preseason testing coming up this next week, and look forward to our preview episode. So hope to hear from you soon, and have a wonderful day.